the Super Bowl sucked so much, it kind of gave you an opportunity to just scroll through your phone and read the news and see what the hell's going on. I mean, that's what I was doing half the game. Yeah. All right, everybody. We're back. We're live on Substack. This is the Jim Acosta Show. I've been calling this episode today America Under Siege. And as you can see right there on screen, there he is, the man himself, Raging Cajun, James Carville. James, we were trying to get you on the Substack live, but I figured out my own damn way, which is I'm going to FaceTime with you and then hold you up to the screen so the folks at home can see you. So you're on. E- Exactly, exactly. E- So, tell me what's been on your mind these last couple of weeks watching Donald Trump and watching what's going on here. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. The guy's in office for what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it looks like we have a constitutional crisis on our hands.
Yeah, well, Jim, well, first of all, thank you and congratulations on the new subset. I actually have thought about this a lot, and I am urging Democrats to adopt a strategy of retreat. Okay? Just don't try to keep up with him. If it's the Greenland or Canada or the Gulf of America or Gaza, and I think we should just take our lesson from Muhammad Ali, rope-a-dope. Just let him swing away for 5 rounds because you can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
And every day, in what's behind this, of course, is the most oft-repeated campaign promise of this century is he would do something about food prices, specifically eggs, which funniest line I heard so far is somebody told a politician, I'd throw an egg at you, but I can't afford it.
Yeah. That's where we are right now.
I think I don't think we need to contest everything. Just let him throw haymakers and just bob and weave. And
tire him
he's
out.
He's going to punch himself totally out. And we have a clarifying event coming up, and it's November. It's a while off. The Democrat is going to win the Virginia governor's race by a massive amount of votes.
Yeah.
Because there's so many federal employees there. And that will trigger panic in their ranks. But right now, and I know that he's not getting it. They're not getting any Democratic votes for anything. So he's got to do a budget. He's got to do the tax cuts. He's got to do reconciliation. He's got to do all of these things. And the Democrats are just going to sit there.
Yeah.
And I think they're pretty much on that strategy. And, he's like, he just has to keep feeding. And people say he's dominating like no one has ever dominated a news cycle. Great. Try to do it for the next 2 years, and it's not going to work. And you're not going to get in. And he's just going to change the subject.
James, though, what about this thing that JD Vance put out over the weekend that the judges better not get in the way of what we're doing? I mean, to me, that's dangerous. That's dangerous talk. And maybe he's feeling a little left out of the equation because Elon Musk is essentially a co-president right now. But I mean, when you're starting to kick sand in the faces of judges in our judicial branch of government, that's one of the checks and balances.
Well, they're preparing you for the inevitable. Was it Andrew Jackson, your history a little bit better than mine, who said the Supreme Court has ruled. Now, they don't have an army. What can they do? I actually think, I'm a lot older than you. I've seen more than you had. I never thought I'd utter the word. I don't think they're going to follow a court order.
Right.
And I think that's what JD Vance is clearly saying. They don't pay attention to the legislation. Who knows what they're going to do?
Is that a coup? Is that a nonviolent insurrection? What the hell is that?
It's a massively illegal act. Okay, and I'm sure that a person person can have what is it, exact definition of a coup. But to me, it's just a legal act. I'm not going to pay attention. You can say whatever you want.
And how do we sort that out, though? I mean, if the judge says, like today, a judge said to the Trump administration, "You're violating my order. I told you to freeze this thing that you're trying to do with, halting all this grant funding and so on, and the administration is not complying." And so,
right.
Judges are issuing warnings.
That's all they have the power to do.
Yeah.
They have all they have is U.S. Marshals. That's the way that the system works. Is we have a judiciary. It totally depends on people following and paying attention to his rulings. They are telling you right to your face, we don't care what you did. We're not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, and what?
Excuse me. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say. Well, one of the things I brought up, I put a Substack post out today. Trump is very comfortable operating in the space of the courts. We saw what took place when he was out of office, when Joe Biden was president. There were delay tactics after delay tactics and so on, took things to the Supreme Court, where he gets kind of a get out of jail free card, courtesy of the majority that he has there. And so, they can go ahead and do that. There's obviously that's well within their rights, but Trump can play this system like a fiddle. He plays it like a violin.
Well, you can play anything you want if you don't follow the law.
Yeah.
If the courts tell me to do something, I'm not going to do it. And so they tell him he can't impound these funds. Well, he tells Russell Boyd, OMB, whoever releases the funds, don't release them. So at that point, what do? Do you send the army in to release? I don't know. I don't know, because our system is not designed. It's never had this kind of confrontation. I have to go all the way back to the succession crisis to think, we don't care what you do.
And so, Jim, does this take us to a point there then where people are going to rise up? I mean, if Democrats in Congress can't do anything because of the numbers, elections have consequences. If the courts can only say, "Hey, we told you not to do this. We're going to tell you again," and they just play volleyball in the courts. What does that mean for the people? I mean, what do the people do? They're asking Democrats, "What can we do?"
Well, the people. He said that he was going to do a lot of this, and the people said, should not be surprised at any of this. My favorite thing is they go interview the people in Dearborn, Michigan. All right. And I've worked a lot in the Middle East. I've spent a lot of time there. Yep. There are two things that are undeniable. I'll have to say it because it's the truth, that the Palestinians have a very tortured and to a large extent a very sad history. Their plight is something that anybody can sympathize with. I don't care what your feelings are.
Yeah.
And they also, when an Israeli leader said it, I think it was Mujahid, but somebody said they never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. Basically, Bill Clinton and Ehud Barak gave them everything. I literally gave them the river to the sea. All right, all the land back, independent state, Western support, and Arafat says, "I can't do it." Then
huge missed opportunity. Yeah,
huge missed opportunity. I mean, you couldn't believe how big a missed opportunity it is. Yeah. And so Trump, they come in and they're mad at Biden. I'm not sure for what. So they said they're going to vote for Trump. And then, of course, Trump tells Israel, we're going to move 2 million people out of Gaza. I mean, think about what that entails. And you couldn't get 5 seconds into it. And this is insane. Yeah. But for people, that unfortunate, that's smart. I was at the University of Southern California, and the head of the physics and the chemistry department. I don't know, some guy I've never seen a guy with so many PhDs. Brilliant man, is a Palestinian, got more degrees than a thermometer. But it's not like there haven't been people that have been sympathetic to their plight.
Yeah.
And they've had any number of opportunities to forge something different, and now we're all getting well. Not about prices or legislation moving to anything. The more I dominate the news.
Yeah.
So he's coming to the Super Bowl. He has a plane fly over the Gulf of Mexico, and he tells everybody that's now the Gulf of America. Everybody writes about it. And he's figured out that he has no intention of following up on any of it. He couldn't find the Panama Canal Zone if you gave him a GPS in 100 years. All right, I really don't think he could point to Greenland on a map. I would bet anybody if you asked him to, he couldn't find it. But what he does is just keeps changing in his mind. You're going to dominate the news cycle if you say that you're going to annex Canada.
Yeah.
Right. So where are we? The Canadians have maybe the best bilateral relationship in the history of the world has been the United States and Canada. They're now booing our national anthem at sports contests.
Yeah.
Think about that. All right. The Canadians are booing us.
Yeah. And I talked to a lot of folks in Canada, and they are beside themselves right now, just absolutely dumbfounded as to what is taking place in this country.
I would tell my Canadian friends, I know many people there.
Yeah.
I have good friends there. I've been there, I don't know, 50 times or more. I have no idea. And just don't worry about it. It doesn't, I hate to say he's the president of the United States, just don't pay attention to it. None of it's going to happen. He's going to get bored by this, and he's going to go, he's going to make a Steve Wynn build a resort in Gaza City.
Yeah.
And then he's going to move on to the next thing in our view.
So James,
I don't know how we get through this. We may not.
So people, people are chiming in. Their chats are coming in. Their chat comments are coming in. And so one of the chat comments is James Carville concerned?
Well, concerned?
Oh.
I'm panicked. Okay, I'm have the shakes. I'm sweating. Of course, James Carville is concerned because I don't. When you have somebody saying we're not going to follow court orders. I mean, I'm concerned, Jim. To some extent, and I think his answer is just ramp it up more and more.
Yeah, this is not Nixon stuff. This is not. We're going way beyond that, aren't we? I mean, we're
way beyond anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Nixon even had to comply with court orders.
Yeah. He resigned. He left.
They indicted Haldeman, he had to show up.
Yeah.
All right. This is like the only thing I could make it akin to in U.S. history probably would be succession. And I think he doesn't. And of course, you have Musk, and I do work. I know the Silicon Valley fairly well.
Yeah.
And it's one thing: move fast and break things, and that's what they're doing. And you have 24-year-olds coming in and telling cabinet secretaries get out of the way.
He blows up a lot of rockets, Elon Musk. People forget that.
Yeah,
Yeah, he blows up a lot of rockets. Yeah.
yeah. So we haven't faced anything like this, and we're not exactly sure how to respond. But that's kind of a little bit of shame on us. But yeah, they have no idea what they're doing. They just moving fast and breaking things.
Yeah.
So break as much furniture as you can.
Yeah.
All right. And but what's going to come to is.
But if somebody comes up to you, James, and says, "What do we do?" What can people do?
I'll get my idea right now is we use what was known as a Fabian strategy. Fabius, the famous Roman general, is you back off. You do what George Washington did at Saratoga. You do what the Tsar did when Napoleon invaded Russia. I mean, I just hauls off invaded. They retreated, and then one day they didn't retreat. And unfortunately, I don't think we can engage them on the skirmish line, on the actual front line. And I think the guy doesn't have he has no talent. His cabinet is a pack of buffoons, and you just got to let them punch themselves out. It's dangerous. It's risky. It's not very creative, but it might be what's available to us.
Yeah.
And there was a Marine general, I can't think of his name, in Korea, at Chosin, which is one of the most famous retreats ever. And he said, "Well, we're not retreating. We're just advancing in a different direction."
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Maybe, I mean, I'm just throwing this out. I'm going to do some things and we'll do some writing on this, but maybe we just need to retreat and just let them punch themselves out.
Yeah.
And that might be what's available to us, because there's no way you can file every lawsuit. You don't have any power in congressional hearings. But there are events that are coming up. If we can just get to the Virginia governor's race,
I hear you, but
scare the hell out of them.
Here's my question, though, and if you let them punch themselves out, if you wait, if you retreat, if you pull back, I understand where you're coming from. Is there a possibility, though, that you could yield ground that you cannot get back? And that's isn't that the gamble?
Well, okay, so let's look at events that have happened that we can remember. It's actually my lifetime, not yours. We wiped them out. The Democrats wiped Republicans out in 1964, right?
Yeah.
They come back. They won this off year. They won the presidential race in 68. Okay, the Democrats get wiped out in 72. I think what Massachusetts was the only state we carried. Then, of course, we have Vermont in 74. We win the presidency in 76. The Democrats get mopped up in 1980. Pretty dark. Then we win in 86. Then we come back in 92. I don't know. It might be the danger of this is while we were retreating, we lose the whole country.
Yeah. That's my concern.
I acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But how do you fight it?
Yeah. Well, that's why James. There are a lot of people who are saying the resistance. There's not going to be a resistance this time around, and so on. I think that was a misreading of things, quite frankly, and I think that there's a really strong possibility. And I know that is a loaded term for some people. People don't want to hear that. They think it's politically wrongheaded and so on. But I do think that there are folks out there who are so hopping mad about this that I don't know. We might see something crop up. You call it something else, give it a different name. I don't know.
Look, we could. I mean, a guy, a guy like you is well known to myself. And people come up right now. My sense is people are just like, "What is going on? Can you explain this to me?"
Yeah.
And I'm confused. I've never. And the truth of that is, he's mad.
Yeah.
And I don't, and
he's flailing.
Internal stuff I've heard, secondhand of people that have been to the White House. It's more okay. It's nuttier than you even think.
Yeah.
Okay, anything that you hear. This is secondhand information. Some of it is gossip, but pretty reliable people are coming out of there saying, "Man, you don't believe this."
I remember that happening the first time around too. There was a lot of that going around back then too.
I think that I do.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people. There was a lot of you had resistance in the government. You got even there's none this time. I mean, he knows that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not. We can't take comfort in the first time around.
Yeah.
If you don't even have a Jeff Sessions or a Miles Taylor or a Rex Tillerson or a Jim Mattis.
Yeah. No General Kelly this time. Yeah.
There's no General Kelly. There's no Reince Priebus. All right. There's no Gary Cohn to take the memos, to take the stuff off of his desk.
Yeah.
All right. They're not calling each other and saying, "Shit, what are we doing here?"
Yeah.
And he's aware. He's got literally planted people. And however bad you think the headline people are, the undersecretaries and the administrative assistants and the this and the that are 10 times worse.
Yeah. Well, James, it's always great to talk to you. Next time we're going to figure this out. We're going to get you in the Substack, so I don't have to do this.
Excited that you're doing this. Hear from you more. I wish.
Let's do it.
I had a better answer for you, but
Yeah.
right now I just don't have a very good one. And I can't apologize for it because I've thought about it. I talk about it, and the only thing I can come up with, I hope I come up with something better. Somebody comes with something better, but some retreat is. We just got to let him. He doesn't have any supply lines.
Yeah.
He doesn't do. He has no logistics. He doesn't even know what that is.
Yeah.
And, I think just let him punch himself out and let's get to an election.
All right. Well, if you come up with something different, let me know. I'll holler at you next week. James, always great to talk to you. Really appreciate it.
And you endeavor too, man.
Thank you.
Really pulling for you. Okay?
You too. You too. Thanks, James.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, buddy. All right. Well, that was James Carville. And James is always great to talk to. And listen, I saw some of your comments. And I tend to, let's see here. Oh, let me just make sure I got James. Make sure James is turned off here. This has been an extended edition of the Jim Acosta Show. I hope you're happy with how long I've been with you this afternoon. But, James, I think what's helpful about talking to James is that could there be somebody who is more straightforward and honest about his own feelings? I'm not sure. James was, I think, very forthright and honest about his concern. He said he was panicked. And I think a lot of people are panicked in this country. And I think there are folks who have different ideas as to what to do next. James's idea, and I've heard this from other folks, is that, hey, Trump's going to fall flat on his face. He's going to do himself in. That is one thought that is absolutely true. The Virginia gubernatorial race is coming up. That will certainly affect the narrative here in Washington. It looks like Abigail Spanberger will become governor of Virginia when that election comes around. We'll have to see what happens in that race. But typically when something like that happens, then yes, the narrative does change in Washington. And people say, oh, look, the president may not be on very stable ground. I do think, though, that what we're going to see is a continuation of what we've been seeing over the last several days, which is people are getting upset, people are getting enraged, people are starting to call their members of Congress, they're starting to show up at protests. You're seeing what's been taking place at the courts, where you have attorneys general and governors and so on taking the administration to court. And I think that you're going to continue to see more of this. But I think if we get to a constitutional crisis and the Trump White House says, well, we're just not going to pay attention to what the courts say, folks, we're on the dark side of the moon. And that is why at the beginning of this show, I was describing this as America under siege. You cannot have a situation in this country where the president of the United States no longer abides by the Constitution, where the president of the United States is told by the courts, you can't do this, and the president of the United States does it anyway. That is not America. That is not what that is not what the founding fathers, with the framers, intended. I mean, for all the talk that you hear from constitutional conservatives, you know, going on and on about what the framers wanted and what the founders wanted and so on. They didn't expect, and they didn't want. Actually, they did expect, but what they didn't want, they were trying to guard against, was a rogue, out of control president who thinks he can do whatever he wants. That's not America. That's not how it works, folks. It doesn't matter how much you like him. That's not the way it's supposed to be in America. And what we're going to be talking about in the next several days is not just standing up for the Constitution, not just standing up for our democracy. Those things are all important. Standing up for the truth, obviously going to continue to do that. But something I've talked about before, I haven't talked about it on this program yet, but I'm going to be talking about it in the coming days, and that is protecting the American way of life. That is what is so damn important about protecting our democracy, about protecting our Constitution. It's about protecting the American way of life. I used to say this when I was covering the first Trump administration, when the subject of freedom of the press came up. Take a look at the countries around the world where they don't have freedom of the press, where they don't have democratic protections, where they don't have constitutional protections like we have in this country. And look at a map and determine for yourself, are those the kinds of places where you would like to live? China, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Venezuela. Those sound like great places to live. I don't think so. And so, you can get into these theoretical academic discussions about, our democracy and our Constitution and what the courts are saying and checks and balances and so on. It's about the American way of life. It's the fact that you can say what you want to say, write what you want to write, vote for who you want to vote for. That when elections happen, the people who are in office abide by those results. That is the American way of life. That is how we have constructed this country. That has been the way of life that we've all enjoyed since I've been alive. And it is incumbent upon all of us. And I was talking about this the other day. We'll talk about it again. People like Michael Fanone and Harry Dunn, they've done enough for this country. They've done enough. Defending the Capitol on January 6th, defending the truth about what took place on January 6th in the weeks and the months and the years that have followed. It's time for other folks to get in on the action. It's time for other folks to put some skin in the game, because our American way of life is at stake. And so that's why we're talking about America Under Siege today. We're going to be talking about it in the days to come. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We had some technical hiccups here and there. We're going to continue to try to iron those out. I was so worried all day long about having a good microphone to use today. I've got a better microphone. I don't even know if that is helping at all. But and then we ended up having other issues with getting James on. We love James. We're going to get him back on. We're going to figure it out. As I think what he was relaying to me is that he had gotten logged out of the Substack app and he couldn't get logged back in. So we're going to work on that with James. The next time I won't have to hold up my other phone. Thank goodness I have a second phone. But next time I won't have to hold up the other phone. But in the meantime, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you're enjoying the new show so far. Still reporting from Washington. I'm Jim Acosta. Have a great night, everybody. Good to see you. Thanks.